Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in this evening's podcast, we're going to be reviewing the big match which took place over the weekend. Manchester United going down 3-0 to Man City. And joining me this evening to review this match, we have returning to the podcast, Christophe.
Good to be back, viewers and subscribers.
Good to have you back there, Christophe. The last time you were on, some very profound comments you brought forward, especially in relation to your team Arsenal. But this evening we're gonna be looking at the big Manchester derby. And Manchester is blue, Man City running away. 3-0 winners. Sir Cole was on, and Sir Cole did predict a 3-1 win. Man U could have had a goal, but unfortunately, Man City kept them out. But Christophe, what are your thoughts on this result?
I mean, you expect Manchester City to beat United, even though it's a derby match. They have Rodri back. It could have been much worse had they had KDB fit and ready. But what's your take on the game? Do you think the issue with Man U at the moment is the players or is it the manager?
I believe, Christophe, this was a very predictable game. Myself predicted a Man City win as well. And so it was. What surprised me was the toothless nature of the defeat. Players from Manchester United look really out of sort. It was a case of men versus boys. And the result could have even been worse if not for the Manchester United keeper. So to answer your question, the issue with Manchester United, I think it's a combination of both poor management and poor player performance are a combination. It's the manager who brought in a number of signings which have been failing over the course of this period. I mean, the likes of Anthony, nothing. And we saw what he did when he came on, almost getting in a ruckus there, not contributing much. So it's a combination of both, Ten Hag maybe out of his depths as well, taking on a club such as Manchester United. And there are some serious questions to answer. I mean, if you look at the results United have gotten thus far this season, you could say most of those wins are some lucky wins. If not for certain events, you take, for example, coming to mind, the Copenhagen game. If not for Onana saving a penalty at the last minute, we look at the Wolves game, if not for some poor refereeing decision. So there are, United is just not playing well. Players are not clicking. Rashford hasn't scored in 15 games. I mean, you take this game, for example. Man City had 20 shots in this game with 10 on target. Coming 3 goals and Onana pulling out at least 3-4 certain goals, keeping Haaland away from even scoring his hat-trick. So it's tough times ahead for United. And I mean, you saw the stadium emptying even before the final whistle. The fans are definitely not happy. The team look very toothless. Ten Hag seems as if he is out of answers. And, the petulance of Bruno, Anthony, lack of discipline, that sort of thing, especially in terms of execution of a game plan, just putting in some effort that was non-existent from the United team. Man City pretty much ran circles around them, and Pep had all the answer, Bernardo Silva, really a standout performer. It's hard to pinpoint any particular Man City player who didn't play well. Foden popping up with a goal, Haaland as usual, in devastated form, 2 clinical finishes. And, if, as I said earlier, if not for some superb goalkeeping skills, he could have easily had 4 goals, to be honest. So things are not looking well. And this is just another, you could say, nail in the United coffin.
Do you think perhaps Manchester and Ten Hag were hasty in removing Cristiano Ronaldo from the team? Could his presence have made a difference?
I mean, that ship is long sailed, to be honest. That ship is long sailed. And I mean, in Ronaldo's latter years, it became more of an individual than a player. So personally, I had no issue with Ronaldo being removed. And at the time, it was definitely justified. but the signings which have come in since have really not added much to the team. And I think the results we're seeing is as a result of that and not necessarily as a result of, a dismissal of Ronaldo. I mean, Holland came in, still haven't hit the ground running. As Fer mentioned, other players who the coach would have been looking to, players he would have been familiar with somewhat. You know, Anthony, not much since his signing. Mason Mount this season, not firing. Some may question that signing. Why sign another player when you already have a like player in the likes of a Bruno Fernandes in the team? Why the need for Mount? And thus far, he has failed to really gel or lived up to any sort of expectation. Amrabat was seen as the savior, but again, in this game, he was hauled off at halftime. Some may question his selection. Some may say Ten Hag got the starting 11 wrong. It was more he was looking for energy in the midfield, and that was non-existent. Oftentimes Bruno Fernandes is a liability defensively. And again, we saw that, when it comes to playing a team such as Man City, all hands have to be on deck in order to grind out a result, especially playing in front of your home fans. You would have expected a sterner test, but Man City pretty much imposed themselves. I mean, when you look at it, 60% possession. Manchester United was now forced to play on the counter. And, even though the game ended 3-0, United did carve out one or two chances on the counter attack. Not necessarily through any, creative build-up play, but Rashford on the counter had, what could be classified as an opportunity to hit the target. He missed. McTominay had that shot late in the first half, which was saved by Edison. And I thought that was United's best scoring moment in the game, outside of 90 minutes. And the second half, things even went further downhill. So not only did they have a poor first half, but come the second half, things got worse. The subs which came on was lacking in impact. Garnacho came on, tried his best, but one man against the world, not much came of his introduction. But it's a downhill battle. Man U is in the doldrums currently, and who to tell when they might rise? It may take a managerial change for some positivity to return to that Manchester United team. I don't know. I'm waiting to see how they will definitely react to this defeat because it's a big one. The fans are, noises started to be made by the fans, and it's almost as if Ten Hag is now on the clock. Will the Manchester hierarchy give him the time, or will they be jumpy and pull the trigger with another firing? Personally, I don't think firing Ten Hag again will make much sense because he has spent millions bringing in his players. The goalkeeper, by now, the United team should be showing the Ten Hag way of playing. I don't know what style Man U play. what can we expect from game to game? I'm still not seeing the imprint of a Ten Hag style, and that is definitely concerning.
I don't think anybody knows what Man U plays since Alex Ferguson retired.
Yeah, I mean, it's been chopping and changing. Not many coaches lasting the test of time there at United. And again, as I said, getting rid of Ten Hag would only proliferate that sort of cycle. I mean, if you get rid of Ten Hag, another coach gonna come in, he's gonna get rid of these players and bring in his players, and the cycle continues. So to me, you just have to hold out, hope for the best, support the manager where you can, give him time, and hopefully, this team will come good at the end of the day. Otherwise, you're pretty much restarting that cycle. Maybe it's another 10 years before you see a Manchester United team lifting the trophy. I mean, Arsenal has now gone 20 years. Can you believe it? 20 years since they held their last EPL title. And, it's looking like a long drought for a Manchester United team of this magnitude as well.
I mean, at some point, the drought might end. I mean, Liverpool did the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Liverpool blueprint, when Klopp came in, he did not immediately get result, but the hierarchy held faith. But the difference with Klopp, Christoph, is that you could see the Klopp style being embedded in the team. You could see the way Klopp's want to play. He got rid of the players who did not match his style of play and brought in players who fit that mold. And over time, you saw Klopp style imprinted on the Liverpool team. So Liverpool now has an identity under Klopp. I am yet to see that identity from Ten Hag that this United team has taken on. And that is the biggest concern for me. Not even the results. We look at Pochettino, the Spurs manager. He has a style. We see the way Spurs is trying to play. Game in, game out, strong opponent, weak opponent. He has a way of playing, and it did not take him a whole season. It took him the summer to put that plan, put that identity on the team. And from here going on, he will just be building on that. But I am yet to see that from Ten Hag.
So perhaps in the case of Postacoglu at Spurs, maybe the players are more willing than they are at Manchester
Yes,
United.
but
Yeah.
it is Ten Hag who brought these players in, Christophe. It's not as if he is forced to be working with unknown entities. He is the one who went out and recruited these players. So just like the goalkeeper, they got rid of a good goalkeeper of the year, David De Gea, and brought in Onana. It is Ten Hag's player choices. Mason Mount, Anthony, Hoyland, the list goes on. Ten Hag brought these players in. So not a lot of the players which are at United are what you would classify as non-Ten Hag players. So he has been given the money to bring players in, but I am still not seeing the Ten Hag way of playing. And to me, enough time has been given. So is either he can't do it, and if he can't do it, then he might as well right now cut your losses and bring in a manager who is able. And I mean, you look at the job Emery is doing at Aston Villa. He may very well become a prime candidate if Manchester United decides to part with Ten Hag. I mean, I might be jumping the gun, but if results continue along this path, I'm sure he will be on borrowed time.
So then what would be the fix for Manchester United short term?
Short term. Well, I mean, you can't get rid of 22 players. The easiest thing to do is to get rid of the manager. Or the manager get rid of some of the players in the squad, make some hard decision, those who are not pulling their weight. So the likes of Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, his leadership style may not necessarily be what the Manchester United way of life demands. So that selection, he may need to make an example, and he would be the prime candidate to see the bench. And I'm sure if he is able to see the bench, other players may step up, may dress up, may say, hey, if Bruno Fernandes can be benched, then what of me? But right now, a lot of indiscipline is creeping into the team. And we see that being on display on Sunday. I mean, Bruno Fernandes himself, the captain, very petulant, questioning every single refereeing decision. Is that what your captain is supposed to do? Or your captain is supposed to say, hey guys, yes, the ref might not be making our calls, but we got to fight through it rather than questioning, quarreling, carrying on. Is that the sort of leadership that a Manchester United captain should be showing? And it seemed to be rubbing off on other players and younger players as well. Anthony, similar attitude. Again, a Ten Hag player. Ten Hag is the one who brought these guys in. So, I mean, that would be the short-term fix for me. Some radical decisions need to be made, Maybe benching of some big personalities and giving the youngsters a run out. I mean, Highland could be seen as the only bright spark, I could say, from this Manchester United performance, versus City, the likes
Right.
of Rashford, non-existent. He was firing on all cylinders last year. Nothing from him this year. Hasn't scored in the last 15 games, So that to me would have to be the decision. Either you get rid of the manager or the manager himself have to make some you could classify as unpopular decisions just to prove a point or to try something new. Because obviously, what he is trying is not working. And I mean, credit must be given to Man City. I mean, Man City right now is really looking to push forward as it relates to the title charge. And I mean, Pep has his players playing in some sublime football, the stark opposite of what Ten Hag is doing. As I said, it was a game of men versus boys. And from the first goal went in, the writing was on the wall. I saw no way back from Manchester United. I mean, from you saw the starting 11, Lindelof playing at left back when you have Regulan on the bench, who Ten Hag brought in. These are the things I can't understand. You have a healthy left back in your squad, which you brought in, yet you're playing a centre back out of position. Can you believe it? Johnny Evans and Maguire starting at centre back in 2023 for United versus City? Come on.
Um,
What did you expect? Haaland
I
should have gotten four.
I think that might have been a tactical choice.
Madness,
Pers
madness,
personally,
madness when you have a
I
World Cup winner on the bench. Johnny Evans was without a club. Johnny Evans was just training with the United team. Johnny Evans was without a club in the summer, and you have a World Cup winner such as Varane on your bench. Come on, madness.
so the best 11 was on the bench then.
Players who should have started was on the bench. Varane has to be a starter, not Evans or Maguire. Varane has to be a starter. Come on, come on. So, it's decisions like those which you question. What is this manager doing?
I think maybe he was trying to stop Manchester City's way of playing by playing. Perhaps he wanted to do three at the back, but watching the game, you saw where Lindelof was actually providing width, which seems like a strange decision.
Very strange decision. That's what I'm saying. You have a fairly good, quality enough left back in your squad who you brought in. I see no reason he Regulan should not have played. It's mind-boggling. And I mean, the
Baffled.
result is there to see. But life goes on. Life goes on. And congratulations to Man City. A really good performance, a really good team effort, and deserve winners. It was no fluke. Men versus boys. But we move, Christophe, and other games were taking place earlier in on the weekend, and we saw another big shocker. Or I'm not sure if I should classify it as a shocker, but again, Chelsea going down 2-0 to Brentford, while Arsenal took care of business at home, versus you could say the league beaten stick currently, Sheffield. What was it, 4 or 5 that
5
Arsenal put
nil.
put uh you know
5 nil.
5-0.
All right.
So there you go. But Christoph, some just a quick overview on how the Arsenal season has been going, and this result in particular. How do you see things progressing from here?
Um, you can't read too much into this result. It's the team, bottom of the table, hasn't won a game, lost nine, draw one. So it's not a result to read into. The good thing about that performance is that you had players who don't normally start coming in and giving a good account of themselves. So it does provide perhaps not a headache for Arteta to pick his starting 11, but potential alternatives as the season progresses. Instead of keeping players who are underperforming on the pitch, you have these options to rotate into your team at the moment. Uh, the Eniketia hat trick, tremendous, but again, bottom of the table team. He needs to do this week in, week out. He doesn't need to score a hat trick every week, but I want to see the performance that he did this weekend continue into future fixtures.
So consistency might be the key there for the likes of Nketiah. We also saw where Odegaard was given a rest also, and this is definitely an improvement in terms of the management we saw last year from Arteta versus this year. He seemed to have learned his lesson somewhat, where subtle rotations, almost similar to Pep. I mean, going back to the Man U game, I expected Doku to start, but that subtle rotation of bringing in Grealish, and Grealish had a tremendous game. So we can't fault Pep for that selection, but it's little rotations like these that Arteta this season seem to be, popping in here or there, you know. So giving Odegaard a rest versus, as you said, bottom of the league team, Sheffield, was to me a good move. And of course, the Nketiah selection, that was obviously a forced one with Gabriel Jesus now out on injury. But Christophe, I mean, last season, you could say the Arsenal run, when Saliba went out injured. Can this current Arsenal team cope with the loss of key figures such as a Jesus? You made mention of, possible inconsistency of Nketiah or doing the business against bigger team. Let's say Jesus is out for 2 months, for argument's sake. Can Arsenal sustain this level of performance going forward?
I mean, personally, I don't think Arsenal are performing at the level that they did last season, right? They are struggling. This game aside, this game
Right.
aside, but they seem to be struggling to find clear-cut chances, right? They are underperforming XG. Eddie, Eddie Nketiah and Jesus are also underperforming their XG and their shots. But last season, majority of Arsenal goals came from Martinelli, Saka, and Odegaard. So that might not be an indicator of anything at the moment, but there is a clear decline in chance creation and in general game control from just watching them. You said Odegaard got a rest. He did get a rest, but Odegaard's form has not been great,
Mm,
right? It could also be where Arteta is looking at potential alternatives if Odegaard's farm does not turn around at the moment. So maybe he's saying, hey, maybe I can play Smith Rowe here instead as an alternative. Since Smith Rowe does play, yeah, similar role, he's more a dribbler. He will run at the defense and he does score a lot of goals. Arteta's first season, or half season rather, Smith Rowe did come into the team and scored 10 goals, and which is why I found it strange the following 2 seasons, he has not gotten much game time.
peripheral player.
Strange.
Yeah, you make a very compelling point there for Smith Rowe. I mean, yeah, it's very strange. I mean, with such a brilliant start under the new manager, you know, but could that be down to the fact that both Odegaard and Smith Rowe play a similar position, and probably the team will be unbalanced if both players are selected in that midfield? I mean, we haven't seen the both of them played together, so to me, that might very well be the case. So I mean, Arteta seemed to have hung his hat on Odegaard as opposed to Smith Rowe. But as you say, out of form now, and I guess an alternative, Odegaard has been healthy for the last 2 years, no injury. While Smith Rowe, I believe, did pick up an injury during that period. So, I mean, that may have limited his opportunity as well as possible competition within the training ground. Odegaard may be outperforming him. And of course, Odegaard is the captain. So you would expect the captain to be selected game in, game on. So it might just be a case of bad luck for Smith Rowe.
Indeed, it could be. I mean, Smith Rowe he did pick up an injury last season, early part of the season, but he was actually fit for majority of the season, just not getting any games. And indeed, Odegaard does outperform because he's giving you more than just that performance. He's giving you that fight. He galvanizes the team.
So do
So
you see him coming straight back into the team for the next game?
probably, most likely,
Well, I
I
mean,
think
like I would say most likely. I mean, he
most
is the
likely.
captain, and I mean, you want your captain to be playing most, if not all, games. So I do believe if there's no injury, he should be back. I think this was just a case of resting, as I said, against what you could classify as a minnow, giving the youngster Smith Rowe an opportunity to shine, giving Odegaard a rest, and while taking care of business at home. So, as I said, I feel this is a good move for Arteta in terms of making subtle rotational changes, and it augur wells going forward where players may not necessarily be overworked, tired towards the latter part of the season, and then poor results and mistakes start creeping into the team, as well as to keep the player honest that, hey, if you're not performing, if you're out of form, then I mean, you might very well be benched. So good management, I would say.
I mean, indeed, I think these rotations are good because personally, I think these are the rotations or lack of rotations last season that killed him.
Mm.
Nobody was ready to jump into the system and fill in because they weren't getting any game. They were unfamiliar. So when other players came in due to injuries or substitutions, they looked off the pace. Late last season, players like Saka looked burnt out, dipped in form, but he was still starting. Why? And I think aside from the Saliba injury, which was major, um, and we did see a dip, we could Arsenal could have still won the league had the players that rotated in had been getting game time earlier in the season. They would have been ready to switch out, and it would have been seamless. But
Yeah, I mean, Arteta seems to have learned from his mistakes and not repeating the sins of the past, so to speak. But
too early to say.
going over to Stamford Bridge, dear Christoph, we saw Brentford, pulling off what I would classify as a masterclass performance versus Chelsea, really setting up shop and sucker punching Chelsea at the end with a clinical header there from the Jamaican international Pinnock. And then Embumo towards the latter part of the game, pretty much the last kick of the ball, with an open goal when the keeper went up for a set play. But Chelsea seem to have turned the corner. But this result have really pushed them back 2 steps. What's your take on these results and Pochettino's management of this team thus far?
I mean, people could have said that they thought Chelsea turned the corner. I did not, because if you look at how poorly Arsenal they played against, well, they played well. They came with a game plan against Arsenal, but Arsenal were also very poor and still managed to get a 2-all draw. This was a result that was coming for Chelsea.
Mm, interesting take there.
I mean,
So
there is a difficult run coming in for them. I expect them to be battered by Man City. I don't I don't expect them to pick up a lot of points in the coming run.
So they'll definitely be struggling to get a win or even hold teams to a draw then. I mean,
They might pick up draws, but they'll be struggling to get wins for the next couple of matches.
yeah, definitely. I mean, again, the problem as we made mention in the previous show, myself and Sir Cole, was that to win games, you need to score goals. And this is the one thing that Chelsea has been lacking all season, the ability to put the ball in the back of the net. And again, in this game, Brentford came with a back five, three in midfield and two up front, pretty much putting up or trying to put up a defensive wall against this Chelsea team. But Chelsea could have put that plan to the sword, put that plan to bed in the first half. But a number of players squandered some half chances which they managed to create. Cucurella, clear cut, one on one with the keeper, placed the ball right in the keeper's gloves. Sterling blasting over, Cole Palmer missing sitters, failure to put the ball in the back of the net. And we know in the Premier League, you create chances, you fail to take your chances. The next team will get just that one opportunity, which they will bury. And so said, so done. The one chance that Brentford got, Pinnock popped up on the back post and buried a header in the back of the net, and it was game set match. Chelsea had nothing to offer with so late in the game, and it was Brentford who went on to collect all 3 points. So definitely a big step back for Chelsea, and hard to see, as you say, how they will be picking up points going forward. And at this point in time, it's hard to see how they will compete or even make the top four. It's a case of, will they finish ahead of Manchester United? Or will both teams, finish in the bottom half of the league? Because the way both teams are playing, that seems to be where their futures lie, in the bottom half of the league, which would be a shame. They are oftentimes considered part of the big six, but new teams are taking over that role. And speaking of one of those teams, we saw Aston Villa continuing their rise under Emery, Christophe, taking care of business against Luton. What's your take on Emery? Former Arsenal manager. Some may say he wasn't given a fair shot at Arsenal and was hastily fired. What's your take?
I think it might be a combination of both for that. At Arsenal, he might not have been given enough time. Um, Fair shot. I would say he got a fair. I think maybe with Emery, the issue was that he had a lot of players who thought they were bigger than the manager, bigger than the club, and that is what kind of resulted in his sacking, so to speak. You had the maybe not Lacazette because Lacazette was a team player, but the Ozil and the Aubameyang, he could not get the best out of those players. And again, big egos. Those players thought they were too big, and as you can see, Arteta did come in and got rid of those. Those are two of the two first players he got rid of was Ozil and Aubameyang.
Aubameyang.
Yeah. As for Chelsea, for Chelsea, one of the Chelsea's major issues is their failure to secure a good striker in recent years. And if you go back, the last time Chelsea had an excellent striker was probably Diego Costa, and that was just for really one season because the following season it was poor. Before that, it was Drogba. Chelsea has had a lot of strikers that just have not lived up to either the price tag or the billing. Fernando Torres, Timo Werner, Lukaku twice. Did they have
Right,
Lukaku
right,
twice?
right. Yeah, definitely. Bought him sold in fact, I think he's still on the Chelsea books
He's
currently.
still on the Chelsea
I
books.
believe
On loan,
so.
on loan to Roma.
I believe he's on loan, so he's still officially a Chelsea player.
A Chelsea player. So that is that is Chelsea's major issue. Major issue. If you look at Pep Guardiola, right? Pep Guardiola at one time in his career, managerial career, tried to get rid of the striker and realized that it would not fly. If you recall, some years ago he was coaching Barcelona. It was Arsenal versus Barcelona, and Barcelona was up, was it 2-0? And they were playing at the Emirates. And he withdrew David Villa early and was playing without any striker, no focal point to the attack. And then Arsenal came back to draw 2-2
Mhm.
game. Similar situation he had at Bayern Munich, where he was not playing Lewandowski, losing the game only to sub on Lewandowski and score what, 4 goals in 15 minutes.
Right, right.
So a lot of teams understand the importance of a striker. Is not just to score goals, it is to put pressure on the opposition. 2018 World Cup, people made fun of Olivier Giroud for not scoring any goals. But Giroud's role was never to score goals. He was there to disrupt the opposition. Giroud takes two players with him, freeing
Mm,
up space for the likes of Mbappe and Griezmann, who did all
were
the
the goal
damage for
scorers.
France.
So Juro played his role then effectively
Right.
in that France team without necessarily troubling the back of the net. Isn't he the first player to go through a World Cup as a striker without even scoring?
Something like that. But he's also the leading goal scorer for France. So
I can give credit where credit is due. You do make a sound point there, but
so
others may say strikers are built to score goals, but
I
I
I
mean, it's the
agree.
same case with probably a Jesus right now. I mean, Jesus is not finding the back of the net, but as you say, he's probably playing a disruptive role that will open up the space for Odegaard and Martinelli or Saka. So some
Right.
coaches will play that system while others may look for an out and out goal scorer. Currently, I mean, you look at Man City, they have an out and out goal scorer. Fun was being made of Haaland early in his season where he was not involved any at all in the build up play, but you give him space in the box and he gets his one touch or his two touch or his three touch in the game, and you're looking at 3 or 4 goals. So lethal, I would say lethal, quite the opposite of a striker such as Juro. But I definitely understand the point you're making. Some players are there to facilitate the system rather than to put the ball in the back of the net. But so Christophe, we're quickly running out of time. What's your overview of how the weekend's action went?
For me, no surprises. All the results were as expected. I also expected a classical, expected Madrid win. It happened. Jude Bellingham. There's no answer for him in La Liga at the moment.
Ah, yes, indeed. Lots of football action taking place over the weekend in various leagues, in various shapes, in various forms. But viewers and subscribers, there you have it. Man City, the big winners on the weekend, running away 3-0 winners over their rivals, or I should say over their, the city they share with Manchester United. Manchester is blue currently.
Has
But
been
viewers
blue
and
for a long
subscribers,
time.
thank you again for tuning in to us here on Beating the Press podcast. Christophe, again, some very profound, eye-opening comments there. Many of our viewers and subscribers will find very fascinating. Thank you again for coming on board and sharing your views and your opinions. It's always a pleasure having you here on the podcast. Hopefully, we'll see you more frequently, and you continue to bring the sort of intelligent reasoning you have displayed this evening. But viewers and subscribers, please continue to help us to grow the platform. Please continue to share and subscribe. But until next time, this is Rafa signing off.